Day 913 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 606,000 military personnel losses. Add in another 1,160 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 9 tanks, 21 APVs, 42 artillery, and 3 air defense systems, including this Russian Tunguska air defense vehicle pulled by a Ukrainian-operated US M88A2 armored recovery vehicle. Then straight to the map, as Ukrainian forces successfully carried out a UAV strike on a Russian ammunition depot in Ostrogosk of Voronezh, causing a massive fire and successive detonations. Ukrainian Defense Intelligence confirmed the attack, stating that over 5,000 tons of artillery and tank shells, along with small arms cartridges and surface-to-air missile systems, were destroyed at the facility, which belonged to the Russian West troop group. Russian media and local reports corroborated the event, but perhaps most fascinating is the specific Ukrainian strike platform used in this event, which is reported to be Ukraine's new pernicious jet-powered drone systems. Because on this event, Alexander Kamyshin, Ukraine's Minister of Strategic Industries, said, quote, "We have mortar drones, artillery drones, and now we have a completely new class of weapons, rocket drones." With Kamyshin referring specifically to the jet propulsion of these pernicious drones, something for which we've previously only ever seen low-volume prototype variants that were not yet in serial production. So, in essence, very much making for an upgrade to Ukraine's long-range drone strike platforms, where Ukraine obviously appears to be very proud of this latest development. And perhaps unsurprisingly, as Russia has time and time again displayed air defense failures in shooting down even the slower and less effective drones sent from Ukraine as they entered into Russian airspace. So this latest development creates some new and very serious concerns for the protection of any and all Russian military assets. Then headed into part of the main map today, as the Ukrainian operation to find Russia's mythical red lines continues on the Kursk front. And where we head to the western Salient, we see Ukrainian efforts designed to disrupt Russian logistical efforts to support the district, with the continued targeting of the Zvenoy bridge, leading to further collapsing of the bridge, as seen in a new video filmed from a recon drone. Something of a before and after, if you will. We also saw the events of how Russian troops tried to reach the northern shore of the Sime River over a half-submerged pontoon bridge, but one of their pickup trucks with an EW device, or electronic warfare device, on the roof, which was subsequently hit by an FPV drone. So the very device designed to protect against such an attack was evidently not useful, and likely outdated, poor quality tech that may even have assisted in the identification of the vehicle as well. Almost like a target drawn onto the vehicle. In fact, these events appear to be turning into something of a regular occurrence, as it seems that many of the Russian troops appear to want to head north and away from the cauldron south of the river. Which could indicate many things, not the least of which could be a foreshadowing of an upcoming Russian troop abandonment of the Russian lines. And then, in that very spirit, a video surfaced online showing Russian soldiers looting at a wild berries warehouse, akin to a Russian Amazon warehouse, also in Zvenoy. 3 Russian servicemen were seen opening and taking parcels meant for locals in an area currently under Russian control. And this is not exactly a priority for the Russian military right now, when they've been commanded to hold the ground in the southern region, leading to the Russian military continuing to put on display their very deeply embedded looting army mindset, with the only difference in this case, doing it on their own Russian soil, picking those towns empty. Then as for the dynamics outplaying in this region, building pontoon crossings over the Sime River is challenging due to its geography, limiting their positions and therefore limiting Russian supply lines, And then add to that, Russian military bloggers fear a potential encirclement of their troops, estimated between a few hundred to 3,000, who might need to abandon their equipment or face capture. But also of note here is the reported case of Ukrainian MiG-29s using French Hammer precision-guided munitions that have been targeting these river crossings, alongside other nearby Russian positions, indicating some inconveniently weak Russian air defenses in the area. And then more broadly for this region, we've been getting further insights into the sometimes dire state of affairs for Russian frontliners in the region. Take, for instance, these captured young Russians who have spoken about the poor conditions they faced in the army, and not from the armed forces of Ukraine. With one even laughing at the ridiculous nature of these events where his commanders fled the scene right as the AFU started to approach the scene, leaving these untrained conscripts to fend for themselves. So it's no wonder they didn't put up a fight, untrained, without their commanders, and severely lacking in morale. But morale's been on the decline within the Russian army for quite some time now, particularly in the way that most Russians are joining this SMO, as some of these young men were forced to sign contracts switching them from conscripts to join the army as professional soldiers. It's an utter disgrace, where instead, realistically, your best trained forces should be on the front lines, not these guys. But then we have other examples where some are sent to the SMO as a means of punishment for disciplinary measures. And this is critical for understanding the situation within the Russian army, as many Russian politicians, government bodies, commanders, business oligarchs, even Russian talk show hosts threaten to send Russians to the SMO as a means of punishment for whatever large or small transgressions they've made back home. So the real kicker here is that this type of messaging within Russia is completely counterproductive to how they should be promoting their army, and their recruitment, and the SMO, to be one without any negative associations. So it's an instant defeat to good and decent levels of morale within their military structures, making for a different type of battlefront in which Russia is increasingly undermining itself with. Then, as for a quick look at Russian losses in this sector, we saw another destroyed Russian T-80 BVM tank, which is a 2022 mod, and we're seeing more of these in recent times, suggesting that Russia is either upgrading existing T-80s, or, more likely, pulling in their BVM variant reserves from far north or far eastern military districts to fill their frontline tank deficits. Or, more simply put, further military reserve demilitarization. Then also on the map, we saw another Ukrainian FPV drone destroy a Russian Juzzie S 152mm self-propelled howitzer in the Kursk region. Then there was also the case of a Ukrainian drone destroyed Russian BM-27 MLRS, the multiple launch rocket systems. Although this particular event occurred inside of the Belgorod territory, setting itself up for firing on Ukrainian positions. Then to take a look at the Russian response, and let's start off from a military standpoint, as there were reports on the redeployment of Russian airborne forces, also known as the VDV, being sent from occupied Luhansk to Voronezh, although they will probably be redeployed to the Kursk region, and this move might just be for optics, as Russia may likely want to avoid the perception that personnel are being directly transferred from Luhansk to Kursk, which could be interpreted as a depletion of forces or a sign of vulnerability for them. Then, as for another Russian response, Russia was reported to be moving heavy equipment from Kherson to Kursk, as seen in this footage, comprising of 3 trucks and 12 heavy equipment transporters, or HETs, which were carrying approximately 4 tanks, 10 APVs, a couple of trench excavators, and 1 towed howitzer. The Russian mechanized cavalry is coming. Although traveling 1,600 kilometers on the HETs is expected to make this small delivery batch arrive in about 7 days. Then to another Russian response, or lack thereof, because here we have Putin, seemingly almost exclusively in the denial phase most days of the week, as he visits different regions internally, whether it be Chechnya or another region's food processing plant, ignoring Ukraine's expanding seizure of Russia's Kursk region, and in doing so, downplaying the event merely as, quote, a situation that has developed. That's embarrassing. Another military has entered into and beyond your own country's borders, with a response that appears to be tacit acceptance. Having said that, what can Russia really do about this situation that has developed? Anyway, perform airstrikes or wage further war on Ukraine? Their military-industrial complex is already firing on all cylinders, or at least running on all available cylinders. But then, intriguingly, there is also this growing change of sentiment within Russia, and specifically on Russian state media, as Russian Z propagandists were almost openly blaming Putin for the special military operation, and done so on top propagandist Solovyov's channel, no less. As this such Russian host firstly mourned about the loss of Russian oligarch or propagandist property they can no longer access, with his own examples including the luxury villa in Dubai, or the penthouse in New York, or even the castle in France. The world's smallest violin is playing for this guy right now. But then the cracks in the regime were beginning to show here, as he stated that despite being a very loyal person, presumably referring to loyalty towards Putin and the Kremlin, given the preceding context, he went on to say that he wanted to trust the Russian state, but is beginning to lose this trust. You don't see that sort of sentiment expressed on Russian state media every day, or even any day for that matter. So it's incredibly noteworthy and one of Putin's greatest fears. That is to say, losing the confidence of his inner circle, those of which are normally recipients of lucrative incentives, which helps keep the corrupt status quo functioning within the country. It's just a shame that motivations for such statements on this occasion was based on, for example, the loss of a London mansion. But one way or another, the cracks are starting to show as Putin's kleptocratic minions may be growing tired of Putin's foreign policy that has directly affected their wealth. Then briefly on the map and headed back across to Rostov again today, as this is the 7th day in a row that the fire at the oil depot continues, and one of Russia's largest oil depots in the east. With this latest continuation aided further by Ukrainian drone sorties from yesterday. The fire also spread to nearby areas on an adjacent street, although authorities claim these incidents are unrelated and were from suspected arson. Oh, the lies. Lies on top of lies. All due to Putin forcing local regions to protect their own assets, but without the necessary resources to do so, effectively making those regions not able to blame Putin or the Russian MOD when things go wrong. So what do these local authorities do when events like these happen? Lie through their teeth, claiming they shot down the drones, with the resulting fires only caused by the debris, or, in this case also, due to the fire that spread, where they claim the fire never spread at all. It was just some coincidentally unrelated activity. Further claiming that they've been successful in all of their local defense duties. It's just a ridiculous political environment they all find themselves in. From Putin at the top to all the way down to the penal battalion stationed at the front lines in the war. It's all so systemically flawed. Then headed across to a quick funny to round it all off for today, guys. It's more of a gotcha moment, because this is where the main tool of Russian propaganda is interrupted by an alternative broadcast, a Ukrainian broadcast, inside of Russia. With several Russian TV stations recently forced to temporarily close down broadcasting after Ukraine's military intelligence, HRU, cyber forces, injected a dose of reality into their regular stream of propaganda, really striking at the heart of Russia's system of control here. So it's a nice touch, and it's not even the first time this has happened, and it definitely won't be the last. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to leave a comment, like, and thanks once again for the support, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!